Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Threezero DLX scale Iron Man figure unboxing and review. Before we begin, I have to say a massive thank you to Threezero for sending me this production sample, so I could actually make this review. Today, we are of course taking a look at the MK7, based off its appearance in Avengers 1. Now if you are looking to grab this, I have popped the link to Threezero's website in the description below. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, no complaints from me, I reckon it looks pretty cool. In the background, storm clouds looking very ominous. Infinity Saga up top, Avengers down below. In the center, the MK7. And yes, it is the actual figure, with some Photoshop trickery going on. We do have this wireframe overlay. My favorite detail, however, is this tech panel on the side. It's done in metallic gold foil, so when the light hits it, it absolutely pops. The same thing goes for all of the tech panels just dotted around the box. It kind of looks like circuitry, and I'm fairly certain that is what they were going for. We also have Iron Man MK7 on the side and the Threezero hologram. Around the back, nothing special, just warnings and legal info. If you flip open the top cover, we've got some more of that metallic gold foil printing and his name once again, and an open window showcasing the figure inside. On the underside of the top cover, a couple of product shots. That's where all the figure photography was hiding. It also shows off that yes, you have LEDs, yes, you have opening flaps, and you also have some blast effects, which is to be expected with Threezero's DLX Iron Man line. We've actually reviewed quite a few of these on the channel at this point, and with each subsequent release, I think they're just getting better and better. Threezero, they have found their stride at this point, and the MK7, he feels really hefty, and the color palette, oh, it looks fantastic. What we are going to do now, though, is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first. It says Infinity Saga up top sculpted into the surface, whereas Iron Man MK7 isn't sculpted, it's just printed. That's because they use this exact same display base with the rest of the line. No complaints from me, I'm glad they're keeping it consistent. Up top, a multi-jointed flight pole arm. It hinges forward and back, side to side, it also swivels. Then up the top, two more hinges for more up and down action. Then this connector, this is not a waist clamp, but it's not a crotch grabber. You'll see where this goes later. I'm gonna be honest, one of my least favorite parts about watching figure reviews, the accessories segment. I just find it so boring. Seeing all of these little bits and pieces just floating here, it's just so unimaginative. I want to show you them on the actual figure, so for now, just know that he has swap out thigh plates, he's got swap out silver things, and he's got the missile pods that go on his traps. The same thing for the laser beams. All of these pieces, they come together in a very unique way to form the laser beam effect thing. The laser beam plugs into this goes on the gauntlet, then you'll see what I mean later on when we actually install this. The beam itself is cast in translucent red plastic, and it does a convincing enough job of looking like a laser beam. You do get two of these, they're the wrist rockets that pop out of his gauntlet. The rocket itself is painted in silver and gold for the tip, and then the top part is done in this kind of dark maroon metallic red, like the suit itself. Sometimes I crack myself up. Of course, it's painted in the same way as the suit, because it is part of the suit. It's supposed to be a panel that's popped up out of the gauntlet. We do get two different styles of blast effects, smaller ones that are nice and chonky. Mine, unfortunately, are a little bit bent, nothing too crazy. And then longer, skinnier ones. These are my favorite. They do actually really hurt to install when you're pushing them into the peg ports on his hands or his feet. These prickles, they stick into your fingers something severe, so just please be careful. They're cast in translucent plastic and there's some airbrush shading on the bottom. And lastly, open palm hands. Some that are blast effect compatible, others that aren't. These ones in particular, they've got painted repulsor sections done in silver. And you can see there is a difference. These ones have a kick up to the hand armor, whereas the others, they're just straight up and down. What we are going to do now, though, is get the MK7 himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. Let's just run through the checklist of things that this guy needs to accomplish to be a great MK7. Number 1, proportions. Nails it right off the bat. He looks like a dude in a suit. He's chonky and big where he needs to be. It's believable. shrunk down, of course, into 1/10 scale. Number 2, paint. He is covered in paint from head to toe. Every surface has been properly finished. Number 3, engineering. Another one Threezero has in the bag. He is chock full of engineering. His articulation is craziness, which you will see later on. There are parts and panels that can move around and get out of your way, no problem. The last one, the fourth one, scale. This one he struggles with. Because he's in his own scale, being DLX, meaning 1/10, he doesn't really work with other 6-inch scale figures in your collection, so unless you're dedicated to 1/10 scale, you may struggle to fit him in. Up close and personal, kicking things off with the Mark 7's helmet. It looks like the Mark 7. All of the details that need to be there are present. Got some panel lines for the neck piece, panel lines on the helmet, and the faceplate is actually a separate piece of plastic. So the edge is very, very sharp, because they are two separate pieces of plastic. It just makes sense. The ears are where they should be, and the shape and size of the helmet, it's in proportion to the rest of the body. The Mark 7 is a big, beefy boy. This helmet could have very easily looked too tiny. It doesn't. I have no complaints with the way the helmet looks. The same thing goes for the finish. We've got some silver just tucked up in there on the side for the little greebly sections for the faceplate. The gold is rich and saturated and nice and shiny and metallic. You can see my lights reflecting on it. And the red is darker, deeper and richer, more of a satin finish. Which, believe it or not, is screen accurate. The reason I say that is because a lot of people don't believe that. They misremember the Mark 7 as being this glossy, beautiful car paint looking thing. It was beautiful, but it wasn't glossy. It was more of a satin/matte finish. This is kind of halfway in between. It's not full satin, but it's also not full high gloss, if you know what I mean. Now, he does have some working flaps around the back. You can open them up, top and bottom. And on the underside of the flaps, sculpted and painted detail. Unlike with the older DLX Iron Man figures from Threezero, these flaps previously they have been completely devoid of detail. These just look so much better. And because these panels go over the top of the bottom flaps, all of the hinges, they are nicely hidden. The top ones, not so much. They are a little bit more visible. Hey, Threezero, well done. The chest plate, it looks so much more seamless as compared to your other DLX figures, the older ones. I don't mean to complain about the older ones, by the way, I still really like them. But this chest plate, the natural curve down to the abs section, it looks so much better. Whereas with the old ones, there was a massive gap underneath. There's still a little bit of gap, you can spot it around the back for maximum range of motion, but nothing crazy. The shoulder pads, also well integrated, not a huge gap there either, and just overall, the proportions are spot on. I know I don't have to keep going on and on about the finish, but I really want to. I'm just so enamored with how this guy is painted. He looks really pretty. When you get him in hand, you'll know exactly what I mean. His thigh panels are painted in silver, and they are articulated and swappable. Don't forget, you do have the missile pod attachments. Can't wait to try that out. Then around the back, you have some gold on the back of the thighs, some silver working its way into the ribbed sections for the articulation. And his calves, they do get very skinny. They're also nice and curvaceous. There's some flow to them. These little panels for the ankles, they are articulated front and back, once again for maximum range of motion. On the underside, you do have some ports for the blast effects. Now this guy, he has multiple little swap out pieces. You've got the rocket pods up top, you've also got the little laser sections and the thigh panels, so we may as well get started swapping the parts and pieces out. You might have thought that when I twisted him round before and I showed the back of him, that was an accident. Unfortunately, no. There are some swap out pieces back here, and they are so freaking fiddly. This one in particular, it falls off constantly. It just doesn't peg in securely. Which is crazy because there is a key and there is an extra piece of plastic that's supposed to wedge it in place and keep it in there. For my own sanity, we'll just set that aside for now. In fact, you can just set them aside forever, because you can only really see them from above or from the side or behind anyway. They don't really add a ton of presence, is what I'm trying to say. These missile pods, they do add a ton of presence, and I'm tempted to display mine wearing them. You can see the missiles up top and the doors that would have split open. To install these, it's pretty straightforward. You pop off the standard silver and red sections for the traps, you pop these on. Okay, this is pretty cool. The laser beam is translucent plastic, so light passes through it. It looks like a beam that's thicker towards the bottom as it's being projected and thinning out towards the end. If you don't have the space for the laser beam, totally fine, you can detach it, and now you just have some extra detail on the armor. You've got this rubbery gasket piece which you've slid onto the forearm, and the laser projector that's popped out of the back of his hand. I really would have liked to have seen a little smoke trail to plug into the barrel. This time they didn't do it. Maybe next time, Threezero, just food for thought. As the line has been going, they have been adding more effect pieces. We started off with just these ones that plug into the hands and feet. They're still here and they still look great. Now we have the laser beams, so it does make sense that we can expect potentially a few more effect pieces in the future. Who knows? Swapping out these thigh plates, just as fiddly as I was expecting, unfortunately. The first thing you have to do is wedge your fingernail underneath this panel and move it forward. Then pop it off the armature, which in and of itself is a challenge. This clip is constantly moving and it's very, very small. Then you want to bring in this panel and it slots onto this little rounded section. When you push it in, granted it will try and move on you, then you'll slot it up and in position to cover up the gap that was revealed by pulling it down. Now that they're both on, it's awesome. You can see the little missile sticking out and it adds so much depth. Whereas previously, they were completely flat. There's just two more things I want to show you and then we'll move on to comparisons. I promise this won't take too long. I have his LEDs turned on, his eyes are more dim than his arc reactor. As you'd expect, this LED is huge. And to turn off the arc reactor, you just push it. Super intuitive. Around the back, the second thing, not so intuitive, is how he connects to his flight stand. Instead of including a waist clamp or a crotch grabber, yes, seriously, you take off this butt panel and that's where it plugs in. For a quick side-by-side comparison, on the left, Threezero's Mark 7 in the DLX line, and on the right, also Threezero, also DLX, it's the Mark 42. If you're wondering why I went with this particular selection, Tony wears the Mark 7 in Iron Man 3, so to me, this makes sense. As you can see, the Mark 7 is ever so slightly taller, and a hell of a lot bigger and bulkier. Plus, that thing I was mentioning earlier with the chest looking a lot more seamless, it does. This is evidence to that fact. The Mark 42, it just looks more boxy. Where it shouldn't, it should be the sleeker of the two suits. The age-old question. Does he scale with Marvel Legends? Hell no, he doesn't. He is in his own scale. DLX scale is a lot closer to 1/10th scale. So he doesn't work with Marvel Legends. Maybe in the right pose, mid-flight, in the background, okay, you could fudge it. Just standing there, he absolutely towers over Gamerverse Spidey. Going over articulation, starting off with the helmet. It's on an articulated neck with a ball joint at the bottom. And up top, a double ball peg. Looking forward to there, looking up to there, great for flight poses, swivel and pivot side to side. The shoulder pads are articulated, move them. If you don't, there may be some paint rub and collision. Do yourself a favor, just move them out the way. The arms will go up to there, they will go forward and back. You have a butterfly joint at the shoulder that also hinges up and down. Plus, this chest plate is also articulated. So if you'd like to bring the arms further forward, you can move this panel just a touch and give you a little bit more range of motion. Nothing crazy. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow going the full way. Then for the wrist peg, pretty simple, a ball joint. The torso crunches forward to there, going back to there, swivel and pivot side to side. With the legs, surprisingly there is a lot going on. These panels can move forward and you can drop them down, meaning they'll go forward to there, good enough for a ground pound pose, going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh, double bend at the knee going the full way, then for the foot, multiple joints once again. I'm pretty sure there are multiple ball joints tucked up in there. Good for forward and back swivel and pivot. Lastly, toe articulation. Wrapping up on Threezero's DLX scale Iron Man Mark 7, based off his appearance in Avengers 1. An iconic look, for an iconic character in an iconic scene from an iconic movie. Iconic all around. Therefore, does this guy just win by default? Actually, yeah, kinda. He's the best smaller scale Mark 7 that I have ever seen. He's nice and heavy thanks to the diecast, he's very well painted, I've already gushed about that a lot. The articulation and engineering, second to none. The proportions, yep, check. Once again, he looks like a believable dude inside a metal suit. As believable as that can be. The only issue, the one drawback for me, and it's been this way since the very beginning of this line, is the scaling. Who do you pose this guy with? If you are collecting just Iron Man, yep, okay, ZD Toys, they're 1/10 scale. Threezero, they're also 1/10 scale. Pair them up, no problem. If you're collecting any other characters and you want this guy to scale, you may struggle, and that's just unfortunate. Threezero are working to fix that. They are making other characters, Iron Spidey, Black Panther, and fingers crossed a bunch more. For now, it's just Iron Man and War Machine. There are plenty of people who do love those characters. Tony and Rhodey, they kick ass. And if you want to immortalize them in 1/10 scale, go for it. This line is freaking fantastic, and I'm so happy to have a Mark 7. If you're hoping that they go super deep into the roster of other MCU characters, we will have to wait and see. Now, I got mine direct from Threezero. This is a review sample. Thank you, Threezero, for sending this one over. If you are looking to grab your own, I have popped the link to their site in the description below. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.